The ocean has always attracted explorers with its mysteries, and today I'll tell you about some of them. This is It's Wild, and in this 1-hour-long episode, you'll learn what creatures live at the bottom of the world's deepest trench, what incredible creatures the ocean throws ashore, what prehistoric sharks look like, and why cute dolphins are 100 times more dangerous than these bloodthirsty creatures. Let's go! Sharks are the kind of fish that every sane person would want to avoid seeing. You can call me strange, but for some reason I wouldn't mind seeing such a fish as the goblin shark one day. The fact is that it's one of the oldest species of all sharks, which is confirmed by their found fossils and teeth, which are tens of millions of years old. Moreover, the fish attracts attention by its absurd appearance. Almost 13-foot-long adults have translucent, pinkish skin with translucent vessels. In addition, they have an unusual outgrowth on their nose, which is used to search for food in the deep sea. In general, the species' name alone speaks for itself – the goblin shark. When you hear it, I imagine some kind of ugly and light-intolerant fish, which in fact it is. You can encounter a shark, on average, at a depth of about 1,000 feet, but some especially shy creatures are free to live deeper than 3,000 feet. Now I'll show you another species of shark, which is not like them anymore. It's understandable because the frilled shark is a real treasure for explorers. The dangerous creature has not changed at all for thousands of years of its existence. For example, its spine is not divided into vertebrae. The word frilled in the name arose because of the gills which intersect at the throat and form something similar in appearance to a frill. The average length of these fish is about 5 feet, but the frilled shark can grow up to 6.5 feet. They don't have problems with prey because of the mouth located in front. Speaking of it, the mouth of the frilled shark has about 300 teeth. Located in an unusual position for other sharks, first come the small teeth and then the long ones. Externally, these creatures could rather be attributed to eels or snakes than to sharks. This prehistoric monster lives in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean at a depth of more than 980 feet. No one's been able to catch such a shark in recent times, so its existence is questionable. On the other hand, because of its physical abilities, the shark simply has no equals in the underwater world. So nothing should bode ill for their genera and species. By the way, do you know how such sharks attack? They shrink down and literally shoot toward their prey, swallowing it whole if possible. These creatures can swallow prey half their body length. Common fangtooth. I think it's obvious to all of us by the name of this creature what its main advantage is. It is, of course, its teeth. And they're so well developed that the common fangtooth can tear an enemy 1/3 larger than itself. Of course, you have to manage not to be able to defeat the enemy when you have special sheaths in your jaw for the tips of your teeth, because they don't fit in your mouth when your jaw's closed. Sounds super scary and incredible at the same time, don't you agree? Except now I have to let you in on a little secret. Common fangtooth is actually a shorty. Usually the length of these fish is about 7.8 inches. Nevertheless, this does not prevent them from diving to a depth of more than 3,000 feet, where they feel great and scare the fish so frightened by the circumstances. Not without reason that those fish have gone so deep, is it? As you can see, the depths of the underwater world are really amazing with its inhabitants. It's not for nothing that they say, the deeper into the sea, the uglier its inhabitants. But this doesn't apply to all creatures. Here, for example, is Grimpotoithus. Yeah, the name's difficult to pronounce. Fortunately, at least in its appearance, this little guy boosts your spirits. By the way, because of its funny ears, many people compare this creature to Dumbo the elephant. Well, the one from Disney's animated movie. As for the habitat of this beauty, it usually begins at about 1,300 feet underwater, but it can go up to 3,000, 6,000, 9,000, heck, even 20,000 feet. At the same time, the size of this baby is only 7 inches in length or so. Of course, there are overgrowths which are 6 feet long, but it's rather an exception. The body shape of underwater Dumbo resembles a bell. And because it's jelly-like, Grimbotoithus can easily cope with the enormous pressure inherent in such depths. Another attribute of this animal is its big eyes. Yeah, it would have no end of girls on land, but in this habitat its eyes are practically useless. In the sea abyss, there is an impenetrable darkness. The octopus uses its tentacles and special super-sensitive antenna to determine where to swim in order not to run into an obstacle. European angler. It sounds like the nickname of a European navigator or something like that. In fact, it's much more interesting than that. It's a fish that manages to literally jump on the bottom. It's called a sea devil in some languages, most likely because of its devilishly large belly. As soon as the creature sees prey, it easily sucks it in. The target can reach the size of the European angler itself. Another version of origin of the name is because of frightening appearance. Huge head, enormous fins, slippery and disgusting frog-like body, and as an addition, various skin outgrowths all over the body. But if you can't identify fish by these features, you can use the following tip. European anglers have a kind of glowing fishing rod on their head. The fish adjusts its glow by narrowing or expanding its arterial walls. With the help of this rod, the fish lures other underwater inhabitants, which swim to the light with hope and interest. As soon as they get close, the European angler eats them. Macropinna. This amazing creature is astonishing in its appearance. The fish is only 0.9 inches long, but just take the transparent head alone. Through it, by the way, you can see beautiful oval eyes. However, those are not eyes, they're nasal capsules. The eye organ of Macropinna has an oval shape and is located inside a transparent dome. The eyes of the fish have high aperture lens, which help better perceive light at those depths where the creature lives. It lives, by the way, at a depth of 1,640 feet. That's not the end of its eye's features. Just imagine. It can see the prey in front of its own mouth. But most of all, as you've already guessed, the transparent head of the fish surprises. In fact, this cover acts as sort of a shield mounted on large scales behind the head. The whole structure is indescribably beautiful and unfortunately fragile. It's because of this that when such fish were caught by nets, they all came up already without their shield. Pelican eel. This is one of the most unusual sea creatures, which at first glance seems like a common, ordinary eel. But it seems so until the creature opens its mouth. The pelican eel lives at a depth of up to 16,000 feet. It's mostly dark in color and is about 5 feet in length. But these guys don't care about other distinctive features because the highlight is always a huge lower jaw and elongated throat with a leathery sac, reminiscent of the pelican's gular sac, for which pelican eels got their name. Exactly like its brother by name, this fish uses adaptation to scoop large volumes of water into its mouth and hold its prey there. Scientists have an interesting assumption about their mouth, that it contains some glands that secrete substances and digest their prey before it's swallowed. Devil worm. And this creature is more than real. Although it's difficult to believe in its existence at a depth of several kilometers. Besides, I'm not talking about some fish, but an ordinary worm. However, I probably rushed with the word ordinary. More than 10 years ago, this species of worm was discovered by a team exploring the underground world around the Beatrix gold mine in South Africa. There, at a depth of more than 1.8 miles, a worm lived which had a frightening appearance. For a long time, scientists couldn't understand how it could do it. But they soon came to an interesting conclusion. It turned out that these little guys borrowed the key gene from fungi that live among the roots of plants. It was this property that allowed the devil worm to survive in high temperatures and pressures. Just imagine, the creature lives under constant heat of more than 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And with a complete lack of oxygen. To me, that's incredible. GoPro on a fish. Dolphin journey. Yes, as you understand from the title of the following story, the camera is not always attached to small creatures. At times, such animals as dolphins can also become a target for adventurers. However, you can't take them back to you on the hook. Plus, their speed can be quite different. It's not like keeping track of a little fish in a lake. That's why scientists approached the problem of installing a camera more seriously. And the dolphins weren't easy. These two are members of the U.S. Navy. They're well-trained and know the area. By the way, the purpose of these dolphins is to search for underwater mines. Can you imagine? But we're not going to talk about anything bad or dangerous yet, so let's rather check out what these beauties have captured for us there. Oh yeah, one more important point. The shooting took about 6 months in total. During that time, the scientists managed to take a lot of beautiful videos, as well as record unique sounds. Just listen to how sweetly these creatures talk. Their meal was also caught on camera. Where can we go without it? The dolphins ate all kinds of perch, halibut, pufferfish, smelt, and even sea snakes. In doing so, they sometimes used an unusual way of eating food, which is characteristic of toothed whales. The predator expands its throat to literally suck in its prey if it tries to escape. Also, during the eating of prey or just any turns, you can now look at the dolphin in a different way. From this angle, the animal looks like some kind of alien, which teeth periodically appeared. So, what do you think of these creatures? What do you think of their sounds while searching for prey, their appearance, and their movement style? Write what you think about it in the comments. There were fish and dolphins today. It seems that nothing more of the underwater can surprise us, right? But penguins don't think so. Yeah, that's right, penguins. Some scientists managed to install a camera on this cute creature and film the seabird hunting. Well, I suggest you check out the result. The video shows the penguins swimming around a school of sardines. The bird snatches inattentive fish out of the school several times and also catches the creatures that got behind the school. Other penguins, albatrosses, and cormorants can also be seen nearby. Scientists' comments on this are as follows. Normally, sub-Antarctic penguins look for food closer to the bottom, but as this video showed, they don't pass up the opportunity to snack on fish from passing schools as well. So, what do you think of these skilled hunters? It's curious to watch such fast and nimble birds, which, in case anyone didn't know, can reach speeds of up to 19 miles per hour, so it's not so easy to get away from them. But it's not just about installing cameras on fish and exploring the underwater world this way, right? Sometimes scientists dive themselves or use some kind of device that can be lowered quite deeply. My point is that now we're going to talk about other, no less interesting underwater cases and moments. Stay tuned so you don't miss anything. Do you know the answer to the question, what does the giant squid hunt? This is that very kind of squid, thanks to which people came up with the kraken and similar monsters. It seems to me that you hardly know the answer. The thing is, these creatures were first discovered relatively recently, and scientists are just beginning to study them properly. At the same time, the study of such creatures is by no means an easy process, because giant squids live at no less gigantic depths. That's why scientists lowered the camera deep down, hoping to capture at least part of the giant squid, but they were much luckier. About 3,000 feet in the water column, scientists for the first time ever filmed huge objects these creatures can hunt on. Scientists lowered a special camera under the water with an elaborate light, a light that simultaneously shows us the squid and at the same time does not scare this unusual creature. Do you know what the giant squid chose as its prey? That's right, a bathyscaphe with a camera. A bathyscaphe which size exceeded 26 feet. This means that the giant squid can hunt creatures larger than itself. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible to determine how this hunt would have ended. In the end, the squid realized that the scientists were trying to fool it and deftly slipped away from the camera lens back to its native depths. But what else is native, already for us, is Australia and its unusual stories with the animal world. This time a diver was simply swimming somewhere in shallow water, making an amateur video, and a shark swam up to him out of nowhere. The fish didn't just swim up to say hello, it wanted to hit the man to deprive him of the possibility of orientation in space. However, the guy turned out to be more agile and clever than the shark. The diver thought of everything in time and struck a few blows with the tripod of the camera. It scared the predator away and no one was injured as a result. But just look at what toothy monsters swam next to the diver. It was just horrible. Tornadoes are not always bad. That's what each of you might think while watching the following video. The fact is that I'm about to show you an unusual tornado. A tornado made of fish. And no, the pool fish weren't flying somewhere in the air. They made this tornado themselves underwater. There were a lot of fish, to put it mildly. This is explained by the fact that during the mating season, the species of fish forms such clusters. And this in turn provokes the emergence of funnels. Just imagine how cool it was at that moment for a diver who saw this fascinating and at the same time very rare phenomenon with his own eyes. To be fair, it's worth noting that it took him quite a while to catch the moment. Hit the like button, all of you who stared at such a mesmerizing video. It is really some kind of magic. Finger of death. This is how you can describe this phenomenon if you see it for the first time and do not know what it is. After all, you should agree that the picture looks as if the planet was inhabited by sea stars, not people, and a mighty finger of God came down from the sky wanting to restore order. Well, if we speak at less slightly scientific language and try to explain what it is, the answer is as follows. Before us is the so-called brinicle, a phenomenon that's the process of formation of a special form of sea ice at the moment of collision of a stream of slightly salted ice water with saltier ocean water. The underwater equivalent of a stalactite is formed. Surprisingly, after learning about this about 10 years ago, scientists are still studying this process and cannot speak of it with 100% probability. Once all of this ice flow reaches the bottom, it begins to spread across the surface, as if it were creeping across it, freezing everything in its path. This can be seen in the starfish, which were bouncing merrily along the bottom, but at one point, when the effect of the brinicle reached them, they suddenly became much less active. Some froze at all, and some could barely move. Unfortunately, for everyone who worries about the fate of the starfish being trapped in such a trap of nature, they did not survive. I suggest that we not stray too far from the subject of freezing and look at something else, no less fascinating and surprising. I'm talking about a unique phenomenon. A group of divers found a frozen lake just under the water. The most curious thing is that it's not just a layer of frozen bottom, but a real passageway to a new level, a level that hides at least something mystical and mysterious. You have to agree, it's very interesting and unusual, but at the same time it's a little scary to watch. What if you dive into that hole and can't find your way out? You won't just find yourself underwater, you'll find yourself under 2 layers of ice. There's a pretty big distance between each of them. Scientists simulated what one of the prehistoric sharks might have looked like. It looks something like this. Creepy, isn't it? But there have been creepier sharks on our planet, and now I'll show you 10 of the most terrifying prehistoric sharks. Colossal. The first shark-like creatures appeared over 450 million years ago. But the oldest evidence of sharks is about 400 million years old. Thus, the colossal shark is one of the first sharks in history, as well as one of the most fearsome. This shark was characterized by its scary face, powerful jaws, and sharp teeth. It also had a slender, streamlined body, which means that colossal was fast-moving. The upper jaw of the shark was attached to the cranium from the front and back, not only from the back. Thus, unlike modern sharks, colossal couldn't open its mouth wide, but this only gave it an even creepier appearance. It was also complemented by the almost complete absence of scales on its body. Given the incredible age of the shark, scientists cannot fully describe it, but it appears that colossal was a very formidable predator of its time. Tiniest. Next up is tiniest, large prehistoric sharks that grew up to almost 49 feet in length. That is, they were about the same size as modern whale sharks, the largest of today's sharks. However, unlike them, the creepy tiniest sharks were predators. The animal's jaw contained a large number of teeth. they could total up to 550. Because of these teeth, predatory instincts, and large size, Tychidus easily gnawed shells and chitin of mollusks and crustaceans. It hunted mainly on them. Habitat. Helicoprion. Helicoprion is rightly considered one of the strangest, most unusual, and creepiest fish of all time. And one look at this creature is enough to understand why this is so. These fish are not sharks in the modern sense of the word, but representatives of primitive cartilaginous fish, close to the ancestors of chimeras as sharks. But that's not so important now. Far more important is the jaws of Helicoprion. It differs markedly from the jaws of other sharks and marine animals in general. Outwardly, it looks like a circular saw. In fact, it worked like a circular saw. Scientists have modeled the principle of the Helicoprion's jaw, which is called the spiral. Scientists believe that during the hunt, Helicoprion would catch its prey, close its jaws, and twist the spiral to shred its prey. After passing over the disc of such a sharp saw, the prey had no chance of escape. Helicoprion inhabited our planet about 290 to 254 million years ago, and at one time was definitely one of the most dangerous animals in the world. Cretosrhynia. Cretosrhynia, or the Ginsu shark, is often compared to the modern great white shark. It makes sense. They're even similar in appearance. But Cretosrhynia was bigger. It was up to 26 feet long and weighed over 3 tons. Like modern great white sharks, the Ginsu shark was one of the main predators of the world ocean. These monsters didn't hesitate to attack even such dangerous creatures as mosasaurs. This is confirmed by the findings of scientists who found teeth marks from the Cretosrhynia on the bones of small mosasaurs. These sharks also hunted on large turtles, plesiosaurs, bony fish, and other sharks. As a rule, the hunt was successful. The strong and smooth teeth of these sharks allowed them to kill relatively large animals with ease. And many of their preys were simply swallowed whole. Scientists believe that Ginsu sharks rushed at their enemies at high speed so that the blows were as powerful and effective as possible. However, Ginsu sharks themselves became preys as well. Mosasaurs took revenge on these sharks for their congeners. The extinction of Cretosrhynia is often attributed to the fact that large mosasaurs flourished. And the next shark never went extinct, though it may also be called a prehistoric shark. I'm talking about the goblin shark. Many of you have definitely heard about it. This unusual shark is called a living fossil. It's believed that the first goblin shark appeared on our planet as early as 125 million years ago. These sharks have managed to survive a lot to live to this day. The goblin shark is one of the creepiest sharks of all time, and not only among its prehistoric relatives. It has a snout with a long outgrowth, long jaws that can extend far out, a pinkish coloration, some vessels showing through the skin, and so on. No matter how you look at this creature, you can't call it beautiful. Fortunately for us, it's almost impossible to encounter the goblin shark in the wild. It lives at a depth of 650 feet, hunts in the dark on squid, fish, and crabs, and has no intention to rise to the surface. However, it's bad news for scientists. Because of this, they cannot properly study the prehistoric species. So the goblin shark still remains poorly studied. Adestus. Do you remember Helicoprion or its saw-shaped jaw? Well, this is not the only such animal. Meet Adestus. You could call it the great-great-great-grandfather of Helicoprion. You can see why. This fearsome creature had an equally fearsome jaw. Only if Helicoprion had a circular saw in its mouth, Adestus had something like serrated scissors. Because of this, Adestus is sometimes called the scissor-tooth shark. It's still unknown exactly how Adestus used its scissors. According to one version, the jaws worked exactly like usual scissors and literally cut through the poor prey. According to another version, the shark crashed into the side of the large animal and used its jaws, tearing the flesh, as a huge toothed battering ram. This approach could kill its prey almost instantly, allowing Adestus to eat in peace. What do you think? How do you think Adestus used their scissor jaws? Share your thoughts in the comments. Xenacanthus. This is perhaps the most unpleasant shark imaginable. The prehistoric xenacanthus was small. It reached only a little over 3 feet in length. It had an elongated body and looked more like a modern eel than a shark. At the same time, it had a terrifying snout, a ghastly mouth full of sharp teeth, and the eyes of a mad maniac. Those were the eyes the prey saw when xenacanthus pounced on it. Apparently, the preys were small fish. An interesting and distinctive feature of xenacanthus was a dorsal fin growing from the back of the head. It's assumed that it served not to attack, but to protect against large predators. Scientists believed that the spike was venomous and killed predators that attacked xenacanthus from behind. Approximately the same principle applies to the spines of modern stingrays. Stethecanthus. Next up is a shark with a similar name. In spite of this, Stethecanthus and Xenacanthus were not related. They belonged to different families and even to different orders. Like Xenacanthus, Stethecanthus was small. It was up to 2.2 feet in length, although some scientists believe that certain individuals grew up to 3.2 feet in length. Like Xenacanthus, Stethecanthus had a distinctive feature on its back, an unusual dorsal fin. Because of the peculiar shape of the dorsal fin, Stethecanthus are jokingly called ironing boards. Well, it really looks like an ironing board. If in the case of Xenacanthus everything is more or less clear, it's still unclear why Stethecanthus needed such a fin. Perhaps it played a protective role, or perhaps it was designed to attract females. The second version may be the truth because only males had such fins. Squalocorax. The next sharks differ from many of their prehistoric and modern relatives, at least because Squalocorax tended to feed mainly on carrion. The tendency of these sharks to such a diet was the reason for their common name, crow sharks. In general, crow sharks were quite large and, of course, creepy creatures. They grew up to 6.5 to 16 feet in length. Outwardly, they were similar to modern requiem sharks, but the shape of their teeth resembles that of the tiger shark. And the tiger shark, by the way, is considered to be one of the most dangerous modern sharks. I've told you about as many as 9 prehistoric sharks, but it feels like someone's still missing. Do you think so too? Well, to top it off, let's look at the most famous prehistoric sea monster. Of course, it's Megalodon. It'd be wrong to do without this shark, which is the creepiest, strongest, and largest of all sharks in history. These giants grew up to 50 to 65 feet in length and weighed up to 50 tons. However, scientists are still finding fossils, and based on them, they calculate that some megalodons were even heavier and longer. These sharks hunted mercilessly and could finish off any creature in the world ocean, including pinnipeds, sirens, and even whales. Not long ago, scientists concluded that Megalodon could have swallowed even the modern killer whale, the main predator of the modern ocean. Fortunately, the largest shark of all time went extinct millions of years ago. But who knows, maybe there are still a few dozen megalodons swimming somewhere in the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean. After all, if the goblin shark managed to survive to this day, so might megalodons have made it. Dolphins. It's long been known that they're well-trained and eager to make contact with people. However, they're not as harmless as many people think, and even bloodthirsty sharks seem cute in comparison with them. Now you'll learn why dolphins are 100 times more dangerous than sharks. Are dolphins so friendly? Many people believe that dolphins are very intelligent creatures that willingly make friendly contact with people and that we have a lot in common. There's an opinion that they're always ready to help in a difficult moment, and if they knew how to use the internet, they would shower us with compliments and kind comments. This is a very common myth. Claims of benevolence of these mammals to people most often based on the stories of films and entertainment programs. Dolphins do not tend to help people. When they gather in pods, they often exhibit behavior that's not much different than that of stray dogs. According to some reports, they're 100 times more dangerous than sharks and have many human lives on their conscience. In addition, they're prone to addiction to substances and may experience sexual attraction to humans. Yes, some dolphins are friendly to us. However, we should not forget that they're wild animals and their behavior is explained by natural instincts. They love to play and in the process can push a human on the shore or drag them to the bottom. There have been cases where groups of dolphins swim up to people swimming and start throwing them to each other like a ball. As a result, people got multiple injuries and could no longer reach the shore or call for help. It's not uncommon for them to pile on people with their whole bodies, preventing them from swimming. Even if they do not intend to take a person's life, they sometimes keep them underwater for a long time, which naturally leads to an unfortunate outcome. In some cases, people have received painful bites while feeding because dolphins can mistake the feeding hand for a treat. One of the most famous incidents occurred at SeaWorld theme park in Florida, USA. At that time, a girl who was feeding dolphins with fish in the presence of her parents was injured. At one moment, she threw her arm forward and a dolphin sank its teeth into it. The wound wasn't too serious, but it was still very painful. There are also difficult relations in the dolphin community. Males treat females very harshly within the pod, and often 2 or 3 males are involved in the act. They surround the victim and chase it until it's exhausted. The chase can go on for days, with the males behaving aggressively, using physical force and making threatening noises. Scientist and specialist in marine mammals Georgia Cranmer writes that dolphins can perceive anything as an object of attraction, even the drain holes in the pool. Their actions can be compared to those of criminal gangs. The males tend to stage violent fights and showdowns, usually for the possession of the female. One day, a team of scientists from Brazil noticed a group of 6 males approaching a female with a newborn dolphin. 2 of them drove the baby away from its mother. The other 4 males surrounded the female, prevented it from getting close to the baby. Trying to save its offspring, the female flipped over, which is usually a signal that the female is ready to mate. However, it couldn't get close to the baby dolphin anyway. The males began to mock the baby, dipping it in the water, then tossing it like a volleyball. Do you think this is an isolated incident?
No! God, please,
Well, it's not.
No!
Dolphins are even creepier creatures than you might think. And now you'll see. In the 1996 to 1997s, several bodies of young dolphins were found on Virginia beaches. Examinations of the bodies revealed many injuries. The nature of the injuries indicated that adult males had done it. There are many opinions as to why they do this. Most likely in this way they try to distract the female from caring for its offspring in order to make it capable of mating again. Dolphins are no less cruel to other species. In the 1990s and 2000s, there was a sharp increase in the number of cases of the appearances of disfigured porpoises' bodies off the Great Britain coast. All of them were victims of dolphins. Dolphins have been found to use their noses and jaws as a weapon by which they threw their victims upward, kinda playing volleyball. For all that, dolphins do not feed on porpoises. There's a feeling that they do it for fun. The most likely cause of such behavior, experts believe, the failures in the ecosystem leading to an imbalance in the dolphin's nutrition. According to them, dolphins get angry with porpoises when they can't find food. Dolphins are 100 times more dangerous than sharks. One scientist from a research center in Florida had a chance to observe dolphins playing a similar volleyball game. From afar, the spectacle seemed amusing. However, when the researchers got closer, they couldn't laugh. They saw that dolphins used a baby shark as a ball. Contrary to popular belief, based on the stories of feature films, dolphins do not save people from sharks. Sharks prefer to avoid encounters with dolphins because they see them as strong and dangerous opponents. It's even worse if a dolphin perceives a human as a rival. This can happen if a pod of dolphins is chasing a school of fish and a human gets in their way. Dolphins can push them into the open sea, and already there the person can become a victim of sharks. And even if there are no sharks nearby, the exhausted person will not be able to swim to shore and will drown. The dolphins will not even think of rescuing them, as it happens in the movies. An incident of dolphin attack on a man occurred in the 1980s off the coast of Crimea near the urban-type settlement of Planerskoye. A correspondent of the Moskovskaya Pravda, Russian newspaper, was resting with friends on the coast and noticed 2 dolphins frolicking nearby. Being fully confident in their good-naturedness, he swam towards them in order to play with them. When he approached them, a male dolphin, apparently mistaking the man for a rival who wanted to steal its ladylove, attacked him and hit him hard on the head with its tail. The man was lucky to be alive. His friends were professional swimmers. They pulled him to shore and gave him first aid. Later, the victim confessed that since then, He had no illusions about the friendship between dolphins and humans. Dolphins know how to get high. Dolphins are not only capable of harming sea creatures and fish, but also of getting high in the truest sense of the word. Dolphins eat the poisonous pufferfish because its poison has a special effect on them. According to scientists, the poison has an intoxicating effect on dolphins, putting them in a trance state. Scientists recently discovered a group of dolphins off the coast of Australia. They were hunting pufferfish and getting high. Scientist Krista Nicholson found out that the dolphins chewed the fish in their mouths for several hours and then spit it out, passing it to each other. Pufferfish venom, tetrodotoxin, is extremely dangerous and can cause fatal poisoning in humans. However, according to scientists, small doses cause a state of euphoria in dolphins. Dolphins are very jealous. Dolphins can fall in love with anyone and anything. Often their falling in love is directed at people. In 1994, a dolphin attacked a man. The animal pounced on him, causing multiple injuries. The man suffered broken ribs, resulting in lung damage and subsequent death. But what caused the aggression? It turns out that a dolphin saw him near a woman it had plans for and became jealous. This case demonstrates how aggressive dolphins can be in a state of arousal. Another dramatic case occurred in 1965. Researcher Margaret Howe, who was engaging in the study of dolphin abilities, conducted an experiment aimed at studying the ability of dolphins to simulate human speech. During the experiment, the dolphin learned several words.
Hello.
They practiced 6 days a week. At some point, the dolphin, named Peter, began to show interest in the researcher. Although he was not as aggressive as some other individuals, he literally didn't leave Margaret alone, not missing the opportunity to snuggle up to her and lightly bite her legs. At times, he would roll over on his back, asking to be stroked. Eventually, Peter calmed down a little, and a business relationship developed between him and Margaret. Just then, the study was abruptly curtailed because of a lack of funding. Peter was transferred to another laboratory. Almost immediately thereafter, Peter's condition deteriorated sharply. He refused to eat and became increasingly lethargic. Eventually, as a result of respiratory failure, the dolphin died. But there is an opinion that Peter stopped breathing intentionally from unanswered love. Dolphins don't smile. One of the peculiarities of the dolphin's jaw structure is that the lower jaw is slightly longer than the upper one. This gives the impression that the dolphin is constantly smiling. In fact, this is not the case. Although dolphins can be sad and happy, they have virtually no facial expressions. Therefore, a dolphin killing someone will have the same kind smile on its face as a dolphin demonstrating acrobatic stunts in a dolphinarium. Forgive me, dolphin lovers, but in fact, these mammals cannot boast such a high level of intelligence as is commonly believed. Yes, they can be trained, but no more than that. Captive mammals exhibit a certain attraction to humans, which is due to their natural curiosity. Once their curiosity is satisfied, their natural instincts take over. From all this, we can conclude that trained dolphins can be controlled and they willingly interact with people. However, this doesn't apply to animals living in the wild. There are a large number of recorded cases of dolphins attacking people. And if you're traveling by boat and you're following a pod of dolphins, do not be deceived. It's unlikely that they do it in order to keep you company. The ocean is full of confrontations. Sharks don't like dolphins, and crabs hate stingrays. But why? You're about to find out what led them to this feud. Why do crabs hate stingrays? In fact, the answer is simple. Stingrays feed on crustaceans, which include crabs. Plus, the confrontation between these animals is intensifying because of global climate change and observed shifts in marine ecosystems. This footage shows an area inhabited by spider crabs. Until recently, the area was home to a considerable number of sharks. Under their protection, the crabs lived, fed, and reproduced freely and felt at ease. Recently, however, the shark population has decreased by 70%. Every year, amazing things happen in the bay near the Melbourne seaport in Australia. Thousands of spider crabs flood the seafloor. Like stingrays, they're able to camouflage themselves, so it's difficult to spot a single crab. However, when they appear in huge numbers, the movement becomes noticeable. An orange blanket of crabs covers the shallow waters every year from May to July. The larger crabs that can reach 27.5 inches in length and 6.6 inches in width join the cast and move with it on their long legs in search of a shelter for molting. The crabs huddle together to protect each other as the crustaceans begin to shed their old chitin. This is when they become vulnerable to enemies. Their vulnerability lasts until the new shell hardens. It takes time for the new armor to harden, at least a few days are required. It's precisely at these moments that stingrays are waiting for crabs. They know very well that crustaceans that have dropped their shells are completely defenseless. Stingrays do not need to exert many efforts. The seabed is literally teeming with prey, and they, like vacuum cleaners, sweep through the area and suck up as much prey as they can eat. Thanks to a particular sensory organ, ampullae of Lorenzini, stingrays can sense the smallest changes in the electric field of potential prey. These ampullae are located at the mouth of the crab, so the stingray doesn't need its eyes to detect its prey. As soon as they open their mouth, which is at the bottom, and feel an impulse from another living creature, they start capturing crabs that are helpless during the molting period. This abundance of food attracts crowds of stingrays, causing the crab population to decrease during the molting season. At times, out of several thousand crabs that arrive in the bay, only a couple hundred survive. It's too small even from the point of view of natural selection. The question arises, don't the crabs have defense mechanisms? Or maybe they have an instinctive ability to choose safe places during their molting period? Alas, no. Crabs are absolutely defenseless, and they have nothing to counteract the running of the natural mechanism. But in general, mass movements give them somewhat more protection than individual movement. Crabs climb on top of each other, sometimes forming quite high piles. As a result, those at the bottom or in the middle of the pile are relatively safe. Perhaps this is one of the few protective mechanisms of crab behavior. In general, crabs have sharp claws that they can use to defend themselves. Their reaction to the video camera demonstrates their readiness to defend themselves in case of danger. However, they're quite slow by nature and are still vulnerable to attacks by stingrays. In addition, stingrays are by no means the only threat to crabs. They're also targets for seagulls, seals, dolphins, and even starfish, which have migrated to the bay relatively recently due to changes in the ecosystem. In addition, some crabs that have shed their shells attack their own kind. Indeed, why bother hunting and searching for food when you can always find a source of calories and nutrients nearby? Given these circumstances, it's not surprising that of the tens of thousands of crabs arriving in the bay, only a few survive. As you can see, spider crabs have many good reasons to hate not only the stingrays, but the whole world. The confrontations between stingrays and crabs is certainly interesting, but I find stingrays' battles with other animals, such as sharks, more interesting. Stay tuned to see this and learn even more interesting information about stingrays. Stingray versus shark. Last year, fishermen in the Mexican city of Cabo San Lucas found a young mako shark with a stingray spine sticking out between its eyes. Apparently, the shark had a fight with the stingray, which resulted in the latter's spine piercing its brain. When the spine was removed from the shark's body, it was found to be 7.8 inches long. Mako sharks usually live in deep water and don't hunt stingrays. Some species in Mexico grow to 5 feet wide and weigh up to 220 pounds. These stingrays are hunted only by large sharks. Experts believe that stingrays rarely use their spiked tail even to defend themselves. In addition, stingrays can rarely stand up to sharks since the skin of predatory fish is very difficult to pierce. But in this case, the mako shark paid the price for its aggression. To see a shark fight with a stingray is a big deal because so many conditions have to come together. However, it's still possible, and the following footage proves it. It shows a great white shark hunting a stingray about 30 feet off a popular beach in eastern New South Wales near Sydney. The predatory fish came to the attention of videographer Lewis Lachlan. At first he was just filming footage of his trip, and then he noticed a shark preying on a stingray. He filmed the predator on video from a drone. The footage shows the hungry shark stalking its prey just 30 feet from the shore. After several unsuccessful attempts, the predator finally caught up with the stingray and disappeared into the depths. It's worth noting that at this moment there were many surfers on the beach. After what he saw, Lewis called the Coast Guard and warned that there was a shark near the shore. The man was thanked for his vigilance, and Lewis himself was left with unique footage, which he soon shared on the internet. The biggest stingray. Stingrays have virtually no enemies other than large aquatic predators and humans, and sometimes get truly incredible catches. In 2011, famous British fisherman Jeremy Wade, who hosts the TV program River Monsters on Discovery Channel, caught the largest and most dangerous river stingray in his life. The short-tailed river stingray weighed a record 280 pounds. That was a real monster. The courageous fisherman had to fight the fish for 2 hours to get the stingray to the bank. He tied the fish to the boat, pulled it to the shore, and could only see the size of his trophy there. Jeremy admitted that this was the most tiring fishing trip and the most dangerous catch of his career. But even Jeremy's catch isn't the limit. The largest stingrays in the world are the manta rays, which are staggering in size. They reach 29.5 feet in width, and their weight is sometimes 4,400 to 6,600 pounds. In Spanish, the name of this fish is translated as blanket or cloak. Indeed, if you look from below at the manta ray floating by, it seems that a real magic carpet floats over you. Due to their impressive size, manta rays need a lot of food. However, despite the presence of 16 rows of teeth, manta rays are unable to cause harm to humans because they feed exclusively on tiny fish and plankton. Their teeth are necessary for good filtration of zooplankton. But don't underestimate this huge stingray because due to its love of jumping, it can be somewhat dangerous. When this huge fish soars over the water and then flops down on the water's surface, the roar of the fall is heard for several kilometers. Often these giants are called devilfish. This is due to the presence of unusual outgrowths at the front of the head resembling horns. In fact, it's just head fins, but in a slightly transformed form, helping the stingray rake up fry or plankton. Despite their appearance, manta rays are kind and peaceful creatures. If they're capable of causing harm to humans, it's only due to human carelessness. Not only the underwater world, but also coastal waters can surprise us. Often, vacationers find strange and unknown to science creatures on the shore. Now I'll tell you about them. Huge squid. It was found on the shore of the South African beach of Scarborough. According to researchers, the squid could be killed by some ship or a large boat because its tentacles were damaged and the skin was rubbed. Since these creatures like to swim into shallow water in the evening and swim out again in the morning, this version looks more than plausible. In any case, it's unlikely that any human or underwater creature dared to attack this squid, which tentacles have a total length of over 13 feet. It looks frightening to say the least. Do you agree? Lobster. Here's another aquatic creature that all people know about, at least because lobster's a rather tasty and expensive delicacy. Those who have bought it remember the process of pulling the meat out the little thin legs, peeling off the shell and stuff. All in all, it has its own difficulties. But if you were to get such a cooked lobster on the table, you wouldn't have to bother with the cutting. Any one limb would be enough for the whole family. It's up to you to decide whether to believe in the abnormal lobster found by people or not, but it looks very plausible. Maybe it's one of the mutants or just one such lobster in a million. In any case, it was filmed spectacularly, and the reaction of people makes you believe everything. Angler. It was the one that eyewitnesses found on a beach in California. By the way, do you know why it's called that? Actually, it's quite simple. It's because of the so-called fishing rod at the front of the fish. It's the first ray of the dorsal fin, the elysium. At the end of it, there's a leathery growth, the esca. In order for the esca to become a bait, the angler supplied it with specific microorganisms. Also, these fish are unusual in that instead of the usual mating, they literally merge with each other. This happens either completely or partially. It's what I call true love. Fortunately, such monsters live at great depths and we don't see them often. But sometimes there are exceptions to the rule. So at the place already mentioned in the beginning, the beach in California, the witness found this very angler. They were lucky enough to encounter a female. I personally never figured it out whether it was paired with someone, so guys, hint in the comments. Next up is a somehow washed-ashore creature which ranks second in the list of largest creatures on Earth. I'm talking about the fin whale. By the way, this creature is able to be underwater for up to 15 minutes and during this time dive beyond 820 feet. To illustrate, it's comparable to the 80th floor. Moreover, the fin whale weighs 106,000 pounds or more, and it's 90 feet long. This mighty giant somehow ended up on the territory of southwest England. Its carcass was lying on the rocks right next to the water, and it was apparently motionless. From the outside, it may seem that this is some kind of building taken from afar or something like that. So massive and immense is the animal. The reason for its appearance on land are unknown, but given the condition of the whale at the time of the photo, the carcass was definitely there for more than a few weeks. Sperm whale. These creatures can swallow rocks from the seabed. They help them crush food in their stomachs. But on the day of this shooting, ironically, from afar the sperm whales themselves looked like rocks washed up on the shore. 3 sperm whales were washed ashore in England. Of course, this couldn't go unnoticed, and in a few hours there was a crowd of people who wanted to see these huge creatures with their own eyes, albeit the whales were already dead. According to scientists, although sperm whales are quite large creatures, they can easily get lost in shallow waters. Perhaps because of this and a couple or 3 unfortunate coincidences, the creatures damaged their limbs and the injured ones were no longer able to return to their pod. Presumably, there's still 3 sperm whales left alive, which fate is unknown. I'd like to tell you some interesting facts about sperm whales. So the sperm whale's head is its trademark. It has a rectangular shape and takes up 1/3 of its body. The sperm whale has the largest brain in the world, which can reach a weight of 18 pounds. And the sperm whale's diet consists of 80% squids. The rest of the diet is fish. The stomach of this whale can hold 132 gallons of liquid, and the length of their intestines is 525 feet. It's noteworthy that 33-foot squids were extracted from the bodies of sperm whales. You hear about sperm whales and think to yourself that you have to be some kind of superfish to survive next to such creatures. And then you look at the ocean sunfish and wonder, how does this creature even survive? Yeah, it may have the record weight among bony fish, but that's still not enough, and it can't stand up for itself. There's no venom, no sharp teeth, or anything like that. So what's the secret? Well, the secret is fertility. At a time, this creature can produce up to 300 million eggs. At the same time, the newly hatched creatures have a strong and sharp shell, which will disappear during adulthood. Therefore, it's likely that anyone will be able to eradicate this species. My point is, don't get too worried about this fish found in parts of Australia. At first, it was mistaken for a huge log, since it's so different from other fish. But on the shore, of course, it would no longer be difficult to distinguish the ocean sunfish. The fish was over 6.5 feet long and weighed several hundred kilograms. By the way, this is not the largest of the recorded size. These fish can grow up to 10 feet in length and be more than 13 feet tall, and weigh up to 2.5 tons. What's more, this fin makes you think that somewhere underwater there's not an ocean sunfish but a large shark. What do you think of this find? Would you be the first to take selfies with the creature? Or would you show mercy and do something else? Write in the comments. Something. This was found by eyewitnesses off the coast of Mexico. The creature at first appeared to be a very large squid or octopus, but after a closer look I changed my mind. I don't even know what it is anymore. It looks like it has tentacles, but it doesn't seem to have the same tentacles as everyone else. And then there's the enormous size, which makes me crazy. The creature is completely black, as if it's already faded in the sun, having been out in the air for so long. Plus, its limbs are petrified. Maybe it's all fake to get some likes and views. However, it does look real, though I don't think people could make something like that just for a prank. So what should we call this mysterious creature? Blue whale. Today we've already talked about the second largest creature on Earth, the fin whale, which means we can't avoid mentioning the blue whale. It, or rather its body washed ashore, caused more commotion and panic among those around it. The thing is that the body of the blue whale simply bloated. Surely many of you couldn't even think that this is possible anywhere except in animated movies, but it happens. The fact is that after the organs stop working, the body simply has nowhere to release carbon dioxide and other waste products. This process increases the acidity in the cells, they lose their structural integrity, and tissues begin to break down. In addition, bacteria that enters the body naturally, for example through the respiratory and gastrointestinal tracts, begin to multiply, forming carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins in the body. This process is putrefactive, which causes the organs to liquefy, as well as the formation of various gases in the body of the ocean giant like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen. The gases cause the body to overload, which affects its size. It happens that the body doubles in size, as in the video. The moment the pressure in the whale's body becomes too high, the gases begin to escape from the natural orifices, and just trust me, you better not smell it. And what's even nastier, and in some ways more dangerous, is the fact that the whale could explode at any moment from overexertion. That's why the video shows people so concerned about a multi-ton whale stranded near the shore and hitting the rocks. But as far as I know, they didn't talk about any explosion, so it was all right. Nessie. Yes, it's all about that unfortunate inhabitant of Loch Ness. The inhabitant that's fed up with everyone. The inhabitant that no one leaves alone, even if it exists. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. After all, some guy posted this photo on social media. Of course, both he and many viewers first thought of the Loch Ness Monster because it happened near the lake, and the size of the creature is very strange. Even a professor joined the discussion and expressed the opinion that it's a representative of a cetacean species. But you must agree, believing in some boring whale is not the best idea. It's much more fun to believe that this is the skeleton of the long-awaited Loch Ness Monster. Wouldn't you agree? Globster. For those who don't know, this is a strange organic mass that washes up on the shores of the oceans. I say this because it was found off the coast of San Antonio in the Philippines. A 20-foot-long, foul-smelling monster covered with something resembling hair was found by locals. Its smell was incredibly disgusting, even for the specialists who came to take samples to determine the species of the creature. Just imagine what it's like for the workers to sort through this slimy carcass to determine the species. That's the moment to reflect on your job and say how much you love it. That's it for today. Which underwater creatures surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.